Peace and greetings, everyone. This is Ross Timotheos, Elijah Kwesi, back with another video, Temple Divine. Thank you guys for tuning in. And today we're just going to do a little build here. We got a couple things we want to just record for ourselves, and so we can get some things situated within ourselves. So basically, first thing I wanted to bring up was the fact that we don't have specific presentations that we're going to present today. Like I said, we're just going to build. So let me see. All right. What do you want to start, brother? You want
to? First and foremost, the build, what we finna build on is melanin, and how melanin goes beyond what you might read in certain books. Such it goes beyond just pigmentation and things like that. It's something more deeper in the occult. And a lot of people don't understand, because we've been bitten and affected by this deadly poison called religious doctrines that suppose is something that's evil. Now building with a brother, he was saying, well, oh, you can't deal with certain things, you have to hold on to humanity. And I'm quite sure the brother, Ross Timotheos know what I'm talking about. This particular build, this brother want me to hold on to humanity and say, oh no, you can't do that. You got to hold on to it. For what? You know what I mean? Like we trying to see, the whole goal is to become an ascended master. Just like Thoth. To transcend past time. So the same breakdown that we did on the underworld, we finna add more on to that. Going into the underworld, you're going backwards in time. The time goes back, rewinds. That's how you access that underworld. And this melanin is a key component to the underworld. It has a lot. It's very key. I don't think without this melanin, we wouldn't be able to transcend, go beyond self, go beyond the self. And I'm gonna play these sound bites from Bobby Hemming. I'm gonna play these sound bites. So people don't understand basically what this whole melanin is. Once you get once you're dealing on the spiritual realm, all right, the demons that the things that you fear inside of your everything comes out of the subconscious or your unconscious part. When you tap into the spirit world, such as when you do these things such as the spirit boxes, or you trying to connect with your ancestors, before you can even make a connection with your ancestors, you have to go through your melanin, which is okay when you break the word down. And I'm quite sure the brothers gonna break it down after when I say this. Um, you get the word etymology of melanin can be broken down from the Egyptian deity, which they call the hidden god, which is Amun or Amun, and this this hidden this hidden part, or the hidden part to where you want to find God is in the hidden realm, in the dark, in the darkness. So why is it that you have people that understand ancient Kemet perspective can't make that connection and say, okay, where's the hidden God? Where's the hidden God? It's all within you. It's just that you have to understand that the hidden God is not. You have to heal that. You have to heal those that. Of course, it all goes back to the inner child, but go into how this whole melanin and Damien and this Damionic substance and all of that stuff.
So you have the melanin, and first of all, I want to start out by going through a couple notes that I have here that I did on my personal research. I think this particular research that I did was actually a couple of years ago, so I'm referring to things that I did a few years ago. um, so in the, I think it's a scientific journal by Kosh Y.S. and Vittel S. is called Pigments, Melanin in Human Pineal Gland, or Melanin Pigments in the Human Pineal Gland. So the abstract of it was that Masan Fatana staining confirms the presence of melanin pigments in the human adult brain and or the pineal gland. So in the first 1 to 10 years age group, the pigments were present within the pineal sites. In 11 to 20 years age group, also the pigments were in the pineal sites. Let's see here. Were in the pineal sites only. So in 21 to 30 years age group, the pineal sites were in the so the pigments of the melanin pigments were in the pineal sites and appeared in the stroma in the areas of the glial fiber predominantly. So in 31 to 40 years age group onwards, the pigments were present in addition to the pineal sites in the stroma among the fibers. As age advanced, the amount of extracellular pigments gradually increased. Extracellular pigments were more concentrated and clearly seen. There was no gender difference in the amount of melanin pigments. So the keywords here are melanocytes, melanin, pineal sites, and pineal gland. The melanocytes are the melanin pigment synthesizing pigment cells derived from the neural crest and widely distributed in vertebrates. They are the stellate cells. Stellate sounds like stellar, like light. So they are the stellate cells with long processes with numerous dark brown or black granules of melanin in their cytoplasm or in their cell. So their function is generally to prevent light from reaching adjacent cells. In humans, they are present within the epidermis, so the skin, and its appendages, oral epithelium, the internal ear, and parts of the leptomeninges in the base of the brain. So, and I think we're going to get into speaking about how the soul came into the physical body. What I got here on the board, we're going to go into that. So the cells of the retinal pigment epithelium and the neurons in the locus coeruleus and the substantia nigra, nigra, which means negro, which means the black. So the substantia nigra also synthesize melanin. Melanins are high molecular weight polymers attached to the structural protein. And when we deal with proteins, we're dealing with amino acids. We're dealing with the basic chemical compositions of the human body. So to form melanoproteins, and in the humans, there are two classes, the brown-black eumelanin and the red-yellow pheomelanin, both derived from the substance tyrosine by Dyson 1995. So then let's keep going. The pineal gland, the epiphysis cerebri, was once considered to be a phylogenetic relic, a vestige of a dorsal third eye and of little functional significance, according to the Western scientific science. So the mammalian pineal is now regarded and accepted as an endocrine gland of major regulation importance, modifying the acting of the adenohyphosis, the neurohypophysis, and endocrine pancreas, the parathyroids, the adrenal cortex, the adrenal medulla, and the gonads. So there's your chakras, your 7 glands, your 7 major nerve plexus. And it's also talking about the cranial nerves, so the 12 cranial positions in the cranium. So that comes from De Variis and Capers 1971, Klein 1978, Holika and Ceresio in 1981, Reiter in 1983, 1985, 1987, and then Melandonic 1985 and Dyson 1995. So the pineal gland is the big brown bat. The pineal gland is the big brown bat, is pigmented and intensified with constant darkness. That's from Botnager and Hilton in 1994. These pigmented cells in the cat, the pineal gland, show prefrontal localization at the vertical surface of the pineal gland near the distal end, and the pineal pigment is melanin. Clavo et al. 1992. The presence of the pigment cells is constant characteristics in adult dog pineal gland. The pigment is melanin. Volvo et al. 1988. The embryo ovine pineal gland has pigment cells containing melanin. Rogadin et al. 1998. Pineal glands of neonates consist of cords of dark nucleated cells which are frequently pigmented. Min et al. 1987. In the human adult brain, melanin pigments gradually accumulate within the parenchymal cells with increasing age in males, whereas in females, the maximum pigmentation is noticed in 30 to 40 year age group, and then there was a fall. Tapp and Huxley, 1972. The pineal sites of mammals evolved from the photoreceptor cells of the pineal organ of the primitive vertebrates. In the course of their evolution from light sensitive elements to endocrine cells, the region of the cell specialized for the photoreception was lost, together with the sensory nerves connecting it to other organs of the other regions of the brain. So it's talking about states of consciousness connected with this pineal gland and these pigments. So experiences are connected literally directly with these pineal sites in the brain, in the physical understanding. So it's also saying the synaptic ribbons of the mammalian pineal sites may be a vestige of special synapses that are characteristic of photoreceptors, whether they have acquired an alternative function related to secretion is not known. Fawcett, 1994. So in 1994, they were unsure about the full capacity of the pineal gland, such as being a photoreceptor of light, a third eye in which we could see, perceive, and think and view the world. So meaning we're only viewing the world now with only 2 eyes, but these 2 eyes, why is it 2 instead of 1? Because that means we're deficient in our understanding of consciousness. We're deficient through evolution. We have been deficient in experience. We are deficient in spiritual experiences, particularly spiritual experiences that causes you to think. We live in a society that doesn't want you to think, you know. So going back to this, melanin pigments associated with light and are found in association with photoreceptions or photoreceptors. This association probably exists within the photoreceptor cells derived pineal sites also. It is possible that the pigments corresponding to those road spin in photoreceptors, and those in the supporting cells in the sphenoidon pineal glands are in the pyronocytes and stroma in the human pineal gland. Increase of melanin pigments became concentrated in the pineal gland. So there's another understanding of the light body. See what I'm saying? In our understanding, we have a light body. We have an incorporeal substance that exists within the body. So this is the hidden light. This is the Amen Ra that we seek. The hidden sun within you is the hidden light. Now, let's go into Richard King, the melanin in the pineal gland. So we're talking about advanced sciences of melanin. So the 42 negative confessions of Ma'at, the Hall of Justice, is located at the core of the sun. This sun is talking about not only the Dantian, or the energetic center of the body, the solar plexus, but it's also talking about the pineal gland, the body of light. So which you know, you have Tahuti, which is a scribe writing a book of life, the writing that the queen Ma'at was telling him to write. So God as Ma'at, or goddess, you know, goddess that exists within. So there's 3 lights. You have raising, apex, and setting. You have the raising light, you have the apex in the sun, and then you have the setting. But does the light still exist even though we exist in darkness? Where's the sunlight when it's dark in your region? Oh, well, it's on the other side of the world. Well, it's still shining. It's just hidden to your perception. So that's what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with the higher state of consciousness, or higher state of knowledge which exists beyond your ordinary perception when you're dealing with the metaphysical cultivation. Now, and this is what I'm talking about here when we get into the understanding of cultivating yourself. Let's see if I can bring this camera closer.
Hey, hey, before you go into that, can I go into the shadow real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because this gonna go hand in hand with it.
Yeah, one thing you guys should realize is that light exists as dark light or light which you can see. So when we speak about light, we're speaking about the spectrums of conscious awareness.
That's right. So now, what the brother is going to go into is this dark light that we're talking about. Is the things that basically you you have grown to fear is you have to tap into that hidden aspect of yourself. The hidden aspect of yourself, everybody wants to say, okay, hey, what's up, God? Hey, how you doing, God? What's up, God? These like that. But what does it really mean to be that? And what it means to be that is you're able to go not just touching on the light side. That's too easy. But going into something that, or the underworld, going into the shadow realm. So going into what is shadow according to psychology? The shadow or shadow aspect may refer to one, an unconscious aspect of the personality which the conscious ego does not identify in itself. Why? Because you would want to think that, oh, everything is all goody goody goody, two shoes and I'm good, I'm just a good person, I'm a good moral person, I pay my taxes, I'm a good father, I'm a good mother, and all these things is great. But who are you? Who are you in the dark? Everybody has a dark side, and see, this is the thing that a lot of people don't understand, when they say dark side, things like that. So at first I thought, see, at first, this is kind of funny that we're talking about this now, because at first I knew these things, but once I started to experience, I began to understand. See, a lot of us out here don't understand. You'll understand what we're saying in this video, but the only way you can completely understand is if you go through the process and understand how the psyche and thing and how it works. So it says, because one tends to reject or remain ignorant of the least desirable aspects of one personality. So you want to ignore parts of your personality. A part of my personality that I had to get understand was I am defiant and I'm annoying. I can be defiant. I don't like to follow rules. I don't like to follow systematic rules. Fuck all that shit. You see what I'm saying? Like, systematic rules, when you're a free spirit, I'm a bird. Birds don't, they're free. They're able to go where they want to go. So that's another aspect of myself is I don't I want to do what I want to do, not what you want me to do. So that is the whole thing, is to where I had to understand is that that's another aspect of myself, rebellion. You see what I'm saying? So, but see if these things was hidden, you know why? Because when we're born, that that construct was built when your parents tell you, no, you can't do that. It's not okay for you to be mad. So whenever you get mad when you're a child, you have to suppress the anger because your mom and dad tells you it's not okay to be mad at them. How can I be mad at you? So it's okay for me to be mad at you, mom. It's okay for me to be mad at you, dad. If I want to huff and puff, let me huff and puff. You can't control me. So that is that aspect of that is what I'm talking about. That shadow self. Whenever we're born, whenever we're children, we want to do things our way because we are our own individual. But because society puts a moral standard on certain things, okay, you can't, you can't be a certain way. You can't be defiant. You know what I mean? When you don't want to do something, you can't say no. Well, I don't, maybe I don't feel like cleaning up right now. Maybe I don't. Maybe I don't feel like, um, maybe I don't feel like doing anything. I just want to lay in the bed all day and scratch my balls. You see what I'm saying? That's what I'm talking about. Like it's but some might argue and say, well, you have to have it. You have to do this. It's part of humanity and this and that. But if you want to become God, See, this stuff is older than what we saying. This stuff has been around. So so if we want to be, a lot of people want to in the community say that they want to be God. God controls all aspects, life and death. You know, you control the underworld and you can control the physical. You know, you have to, you know, there's no escaping the underworld when they say that you want to be God. It's being able to control.
I was gonna say, God is a concept.
Yeah.
God is a concept which humans should be realized that God, like I have on this board, God is this thing right here. We live out, this is the ego, this whole little shell. So when you start to do your cultivation, you start to rebel. You see what I'm saying? Rebellion is is an act of going into your spiritual side, because your spiritual is trying to expand. That's why your consciousness expands. But see, when your consciousness expanding, you have the outer world that tries to keep you in line.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? And that's your humanistic aspect. Oh, you're not doing this, or you can't do that. Oh, don't do this. You know, so when you grow up as being a child, you start to cultivate this shell right here, this ego from this. Because when you're born into this world, you're light. And then you come into a physical formation of that light, which we were just talking about. So you have what's known as the 42 negative confessions of Ma'at. Well, that's dealing with the 42 aspects of suppressed light that you must deal with. Also, the 42 strands of DNA that links you to your ancestors.
Yeah.
So when you're dealing with the spiritual stuff, it's about the cultivation of your consciousness, your awareness. You have to turn your awareness inwards. That's an act of rebellion towards society, because they always want you to seek outward. You know, they want you to see outward. Even though your spirit is expanding outwards, it wants you to perceive itself. That's why it's expanding outward, because you can, in your physical sight, you can only perceive the physical things, which is outwardly. So when dealing with the spiritual sciences, we have to turn our consciousness inward to the spiritual self. Also, in order to release the inner boundaries by dissolution of the egoic perception. So like I said, this whole wall right here around us is the physical body, the ego, and then the inside deals with our perception, our emotions, our attitudes, our beliefs. Those are the red dots, the thoughts, the feelings that actually become weight that's put on your soul. So you have to go through these things, your belief systems, your worldviews, your thoughts. Who are you? Your self-identity. What is self? All of these things. Are you your ego, or are you your spirit? That's something you have to decide within yourself. So from the shamanic perspective, it's about the evolution of your soul, the evolution of psyche, because the psyche is a Greek word for soul. When you define the word melanin, it's the dark brown or black pigment found in animal bodies, 1932. Modern Latin, the chemical substance, or the chemical suffix in and to. The first element from Greek melos. What did it just say? First element. So we're talking about the first element of your being is a dark pigmented substance, is coming from light, photoreception, photonic energy. So we're talking about going into your dark side, your dark aspect, you know what I'm saying? So that's called the underworld. In shamanism, man must go into the astral or the underworld. Your astral is your astral body, your light body, the chakra system. You must go into the underworld in order to bring light to the darkness, or to receive light from the darkness. That means to understand the dark side, or to receive light from the, or to bring the darkness itself to the light, in order to free oneself from the pre-conscious programs, thoughts, behaviors, addictions, things like that, to redeem the soul for soul development. We're not talking about developing your physical self, your ego, to run around saying I'm God. That's not what the whole science was about. You know what I'm saying? So what we're dealing with is turning the senses inward to realize your spiritual self, and by doing so, you have to go through these 42 negative expressions, so to speak, and you reflect on those within yourself. Were you positive? You know what I'm saying? That's one of the dots. If you weren't, guess what? One of those things go away, and you start to release yourself from these negative things. You start to release yourself, your soul, who you truly are, because self is non-physical. It doesn't exist with just purely the body or the brain. But just like I'm saying, you start to allow your soul to expand outwards, and then you start to perceive things that are in unison in your environment out here that's conducive to your spiritual. And the reason why we go through the things that we're going through today, the negativity, the imbalance, all those things is because we're trying to apply something that is outer to our spirit, which is inner. Our spirit is the esoteric. When we're trying to apply exoteric intellectual knowledge to our intuition, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't work like that. So we're dealing with the 5 major bodies of ancient Egypt related to the 3 Trinity. The Trinity gods, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, creation, preservation, and destruction. The 5 major bodies actually link with the netters of the body. We can look in this book, Cosmic Breath of the Soul, or Cosmic Breath of Light, and it's really the same thing, but you have the 5 great bodies. In ancient Egypt, you have the Afu, or the physical body, which represents the earth. You have Ka, the double, which represents water. You have Hadit, which is your shadow body, which represents air. And then you have your Ku, which is your magical body, which represents fire. Then you have your Sahu, or your energetic body, which represents the ether. So out of these bodies, you have specific states of consciousness that is related to them. So for example, the Hadit, since we're dealing with the shadow, the Hadit, or the shadow realm, is more subtle than the Ka and the physical body, or the Afu. It is the subconscious or the mental. One enters into the world of the Hadit during dream, trance, or trance comes from the word transiere, which means to cross over, because you're crossing over from this physical dimension or this light dimension into the dark dimension, which exists dark light that you can't perceive with your physical eyes, with your physical senses. So to transition over, or to cross over, like a shaman crosses over into the underworld to do what I just mentioned here. And it says, and entheogenic, or altered states of consciousness, going back to shamanism again, or using the plants to allow you to enter in conscious, spiritually conscious states where you can perceive the transpersonal world. So it can be the world either personal or collective, and even transpersonal unconscious, dealing with the archetypes or the patterns which are collective to all human beings. This world is the source of all works of art and other aspects of creativity. So ask yourself, why can't you be creative anymore? Because you're still dealing with things that have been attached to the soul, and your soul can no longer expand. So now you feel envy, now you feel hate, now you feel greed, now you feel unbalanced. So it's about the cultivation of the expansion of your mind outwards. But in order for that to happen, you have to turn your consciousness inwards. Man sees from the inside to the outside. But it's about turning your conscious towards the inside, towards your spiritual self, to release the inner boundaries by dissolving the ego perspective. And what we're doing here is teaching you the science of dissolving the boundaries of the ego self. That is meditation. That is spiritual sciences. That is what is known as now the New Age movement. All these are fragmentations of our ancient sciences. So when someone says, oh, that's New Age, they're just trying to get you away from your original science. If someone comes and says, oh, that's pseudoscience, they're trying to get you away from their original science, because they themselves haven't dealt with this. You know, they themselves haven't gone beyond the ego. They're still living within an egoic perceptive boundary of perception.
And just to add on with that, man, and you're absolutely right. And just to add on to that, I'm reading here. It says the shadow is largely negative, or two, the entirely of the unconscious, i.e., everything in which a person is not fully conscious of. There
Okay.
are, however, positive aspects which remain also hidden in one's shadow,
Right.
especially in people with low self-esteem. Um, Contrary to Freyon, the definition of shadow, therefore, the um, Jugian shadow could include everything outside of the light consciousness, which may be positive or negative. Everyone carries a shadow. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Hold on real quick. And it says it may be part or one's link to more primitive animal instincts, which are suppressed during early childhood by the conscious mind.
There it is.
Right? And it says the appearance the shadow may appear in dreams, visions, or various forms. It typically appears as a person in the same sex as the dreamer. The shadow's appearance or role depend greatly on the living experience of the individual because much of the shadow develops in an individual's mind rather than simply being inherited in the collective unconsciousness. Um, the interactions with the shadow in dreams may shed light on one's state of mind. A conversation with the shadow may include one concern with conflicting desires, intentions, identification, and despised figure may mean that one has a unacknowledged difference from the character, a difference which could point to a rejection of the illuminating qualities of the ego consciousness. So whenever you're dealing with this ego consciousness, um, you will feel it in your heart space. You will feel it in your heart space, a kind of a pressure. Now, when you look these things up, it will make you think that you're being invaded by outside force or a walk-in entity. You see what I'm saying? Um, I was under the impression, that a walk-in entity just comes in and just walks in and take over your body. But that's what, going to different websites will make you think. But actuality, that walk in, or what you call walk in, was a part of your shadow self that's still. See, a lot of people always want to say, we're multidimensional beings living in human experience. Okay, what does that mean? That means that you have a self that is living beyond the physical still.
Yes.
And whenever it's open, this is what I'm getting from the spirit. Whenever you have a chance to access that unconscious realm, it will come and meet face to face with you when you do that. So whatever they say is an outside entity that's coming walking in and want to take over your body, wrong. That's just a part of yourself that has been missing
Right.
from
Right.
you,
Right.
the body, and it now comes to you or wants to make itself known to you so that you can identify with yourself, so that you can raise, so that your conscious, your ego inflates. So when you dealing with what you would call quote unquote possession or demonic possession, or whatever you want to call it, whatever name you want to call it, walk in, demonic entity, all that stuff, all that is just when the ego inflates itself. It's a mechanism, a defense mechanism.
That's right.
So whenever you inflate, it can project into your reality, and it could use a host, just like in the Buddha story, those girls that wanted to tempt Buddha from his enlightenment, all the things that manifested before him in the form of women, and those daughters of what I'm talking about, bro?
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Daughters of I can't remember their names because it's not, they're not English, but the daughters of something came to Buddha and wanted to tempt him, and they all had the spirit of lust and greed and all these things that he was battling with, because he used to be a king, getting his way all the time.
Yep.
He had money, he had riches, he had everything, He had everything that could possibly take care of his every desire.
Yep.
All right. So that goes to show that if people telling you, you know, this is why metaphysicians is broke and this and that. No, we're not broke. You don't know how we ain't broke? Because the place that we go into after we leave here is gonna be
Right.
completely beyond what you could ever conceptualize on your reality that you have here. You know,
But bro, okay, if they say, well, we're living right now, so we should get money right now. We gotta fulfill our desires right now before they
well,
burn you out.
well, in fulfilling your desires, first and foremost, you gotta understand. One gotta understand that you're gonna always have desires when you're in the physical body. So you can't just say, "Well, I can do this so that it can be fulfilled." It's never ending. Desire is never ending. Just like when you have sex for the first time, nobody in this world wants to have sex just one time in their life and just say, "I just want to see how I feel." No, fuck no. You're gonna want it again and again and again and again, and that thirst for that first time that you had it would always be the same. Just like it is, if a person have an addiction with pornography, the first time you seen a woman naked, you're gonna want to see it again and again and again and again and again and again, and then don't stop. So eventually you're gonna have to either you gotta come to terms and say, look, I gotta let this shit go, or I'm gonna keep on indulging in this shit until it destroys me. That's the choice.
And
So
that's
anybody on YouTube, you listen to anybody that says, metaphysicians are broke. A lot of times, it's by choice. Somebody that is a shaman, they could easily manipulate some energy and pay their rent or something. You know what I mean? They could easily manipulate some energy and say, I need this paid. I need this paid. But see, you want the simple things in life. You want the simple things in life. If you got a roof over your head, a spiritual person is happy, regardless on where they staying at. If as long as they got food, clothing, and shelter, and all these things. And a lot of times, even in some shamans even desire to live in the woods, the simple life. You don't need all those things to make see, you talking about the spirit, the ego part of yourself won't all everything, won't 50 wives and all of these. Then when you want to have it all, just like you want to be like the Cuban dude, you want to be Al Pacino. I want to take over the fucking world. Only the ego talks like that. Taking over the world and all that shit. Al Pacino, and that's what you want. But to be a spiritually elevated person or enlightened person, you can care less because you seeing the beautiful things that life has to offer than just beyond the five senses of this reality. You see the goodness, in the realms. Can you imagine? You talking about being on a highly elevated realm with angelic beings. How can you be on a highly elevated realm with angelic beings if you're concerned about money?
Yeah.
How can you be on a realm with ascended masters and all you Kemetic scholars out there that study? Why do you want to be on a realm with Tahuti? How do you get there? You don't get there just because Tahuti didn't want money. All of these things. Um, so it's about. Can you imagine being in a realm where you feel the feeling of that feeling that an orgasm when you have a orgasm? Imagine having that same feeling over and over again, but not in a sense of just the feeling of it. You can't logically think it. You can't. That's why people chase women all the time, and they want that same, because that divine spark with that orgasm, with that divine spark, is tremendously a feeling that you can't express. Is beyond happiness. So that's the realm we talking about when when you're spiritually rich, is to be in a place or a state of mind of peace and harmony within yourself. So, long story make short, it says merger with the shadow. And I know what this is too. When I merge with my shadow, it says according to Jung, the shadow sometimes overwhelms a person's actions. For example, when the conscious mind is shocked and confused and paralyzed and by indecision, a man who is possessed by his shadow is always standing in his own light and falling into his own traps, living below his own level. Hence, terms of the story by Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So the same story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, it must be the Jekyll, the conscious personality who integrates the shadow and not vice versa. Otherwise, the conscious becomes the slave to the autonomous shadow. And hold on, it says, as the process continues, the limbo leaves the bright upper world, sinks back into its own depths below, in the shadows of the unconscious. So what comes to the forefront, and which was hidden under the mask of the conventional adaptation, the shadow, with the result that the ego shadow are no longer divided but are brought together in an admittedly unity, and the impact is such a confrontation with the shadow produces at the first dead balance. It stands still and makes chaos chaos. Know from the personal experience in this time of descent, 1, 3, or 7 years or more, the genuine courage and strength required with no certainty of emergence. Nevertheless, Jug remained in the opinion that while no one could deny the danger of the descent, every descent is followed by a ascent. Rather than being possessed by the shadow, one becomes at least the real possibility. So that's just going into the shadow, and what the shadow is. It's a part of yourself that's hidden or that has been ignored by you. And once you merge with this shadow of yourself, because it's basically a battle that's going on within. One would say it's the battle of, if you want to think of it like this, the battle of horse and set, and you're fighting for dominion of, who's going to rule, the ego self or, your true self. And that's the decision that you're going to have to make.
Yep. So that's pretty much it right there. And I think, bro, people get lost in that understanding that, they feel that it's always just the higher or lower self, when in actual reality you have multiple multi-dimensional beings. So you have multiple perspectives of yourself, not just your higher or lower self. The higher or lower selves are just categories in which you put these selves in. Well,
right.
That's my higher self. Oh, that's part of my lower self. You're still dealing with multiple aspects beyond the higher and lower. Your ego puts these things, your spiritual ego, so to say, puts these things, because, when you're getting into consciousness, you're starting to get information that goes beyond the ego. So you start to get information that can build your spirit up. But the thing is, we get lost and we start to put those egoic perceptions into our practice. And that's another thing. We're not practicing this stuff anymore. People say, oh, it's pseudoscience, so don't do that. Or, oh, it's this, so now you got to get away from it. Oh, it's money now, so now you got to see the economics. When the actual reality, consciousness has nothing to do with that shit at all whatsoever. What is consciousness? It's not even material. So how can you bring that into the fold of consciousness. If you're trying to make people aware of money and how it could be used to further people's businesses, that's a different fucking story. But you know, we're dealing with the spiritual state of consciousness. That's what we're dealing with here. And in the Temple of Divine, we deal with states of consciousness, spiritual states of consciousness. We experiences. We don't deal with intellectual orgasms. You know, we don't deal with intellectual boxing, right? Because technically everybody's right, especially from a metaphysical standpoint. You could be right because of the way you are perceiving, the way you are going about your situation. But at the same time, in the physical, you can only be right or wrong. So my thing is, my whole thing is, you are your spiritual self. You just are putting shit on that to say, okay, now I'm spiritual. Now I'm this. No, just get back to this. Take all that shit off. You see what I'm saying? Get back to this. Turn your consciousness towards your spiritual self. You know, and once you start to do that, you start to see the world in a different way, and then you start to dissolve the boundaries. You start to say, well, why am I eating this food if it makes me feel this way? And then you start to dissolve those boundaries, and you start to eat healthier. You know, and not just to eat healthier, but because you know it's part of this. It's a spiritual reason. You know, and another thing, we have to get away from saying, well, this term is negative or this term is positive, so I'm going to use this term instead of using this. That's also what I've seen in the community as well. It's like, oh, well, we can't use the word religion, even though if we wanted to come together and build a school that teaches about spirituality, what words are you going to use? You see what I'm saying? Nobody's cultivating their own languages, as far as I can see. So therefore, we have nothing more than to go into these other languages to, first of all, dissolve the boundaries of perception so we can understand ourselves from an indigenous perspective of who we say we are. And then from that, we have to dissolve the boundaries of the psychological shit that has been put on us when we were born, when we came into the physical, when we came into this, you know? So we have to dissolve the boundaries and get back to the self. And the only way to do that is ego dissolution, also known as ego death. You hear about taking entheogens, substances like DMT, or the magic mushroom, cannabis, you know, peyote cactus, things like that. You know, they were used to dissolve the ego, to dissolve their perception of the physical. Now, why do you think those things were illegal? Because it's an act of rebellion to the society that wants to think that you have to have their worldview, their emotions, their perception, their attitudes, their feelings, their thoughts, their belief systems, but not of your spirit. Because in shamanism, it is known that we use these things, meditation, for example, qigong, all of these things, all of the spiritual practices that you can think of from all cultures, yoga, all the different forms of yoga, meditation, all the different forms of meditation, spirituality, magic, the occult, all of that is dealing with your inner self. In different ways you can interact and see and experience and know and find out your true self. But if you're dealing with this outer body and you look at these things, well, that's negative, that's bad. The altering of your consciousness goes way beyond a good and bad standpoint, because when you go to sleep, actually, matter of fact, different stages of the day you are all in different brain waves or different states of consciousness. So what are you talking about being in different altered states of consciousness is negative? Or are you saying that's an act of rebellion to see my higher self? You know what I'm saying? And when you actually go to your higher self, you start to have those mystical experiences, those things where you start to see beyond the physical. You start to see God. You start to see and speak with the higher intelligences, and which are nothing more than your spirit self, your soul, which is connected to that realm, the astro, the underworld, the astral realm. That's why you have an astral body, which is your spirit, which is the part of yourself that is interdimensional. Your physical is not fucking interdimensional. It's this right here, your consciousness. is what's interdimensional, and your consciousness is what allows you to exist in between the physical or the spiritual. That's what we're talking about here. So altered state of consciousness, alpha, beta, theta, and delta, these are just basic ways that you can access these different bodies, access the different spiritual layers of self. And you have to go through this in order, when you're in a dream state, you're living within your the mind, in which allows you to perceive your spiritual self. That's why you have dreams or experiences that exist beyond your physical. You're not aware of your physical body. That's ego death, because you're not aware of you're not aware of the boundaries that keep you in this world, specifically when you're dreaming. But there's different states of consciousness. You have the alpha, beta, theta, and delta. So when you go into these different states of brain waves, which carries consciousness, the different state of consciousness in each wave, you start to realize that we have to release our repressed experiences, while in which will bring the negative through behavior. It will bring it out. So you have to release this stuff. You have to release greed, lust, fear, anger. Those are the boundaries that keep you from realizing your spirit self. So when you're dealing with the melanin, it's not only the pigment of the skin, but it's a sin. Yeah, because the fucking body is a sin. The body is the only thing that can sin. Your soul cannot sin. It's pure. But how does it get out of sin? How does it get out of the skin? You see? So melanin is not only a pigment in the skin, but also a leftover aspect of light or photonic energy from the sun. That's why this looks like a sun. When you look at the sun, all you can see is the rays coming off of it. You can't stare in the middle of it. Why? Because it's hidden. Amun Ra. Goes beyond your perception. Your eyes will burn out. So this is what I'm talking about here. When we look at the sun, what do you see? You see the outer rays. Well, that's the ego. That's the physical body of the sun. But what's inside of it? The soul. Now ask yourself why the sun is called the soul, or why the soul, S-O-L, S-O-U-L, is the same thing for sun. The soul is your inner sun. So we're talking about your inner light. There are 12 major cranial nerves in your brain. And you have the 7 major nerve plexus. These nerves are bundles of light, bundles of energetic, energetic, like how you have your veins that run throughout your body. You have these channels of nerve plexus. You have channels of nerves. Well, these nerves correspond to what is known as the nadi points, or the meridians, the spiritual meridians. So when you start to cultivate your spiritual body, you start to activate your meridians, or your nerve plexus, including the 12 cranial and the 7 nerves. So which makes up one's light body. In each of these centers, there is melanin, which is light body. So which manifests or comes into existence. So you have light, which is astral or star, a star. So you're talking about your light body. Melanin centers are star centers, which holds encoded condensed light, because that's what melanin is. Carbon is the same thing as is related to melanin in the earth. Carbon, you're a carbon-based being, because you have the basis of your being, the basis of your physical and your spiritual body is light. And when it comes into existence, it leaves a pigment or a resin called melanin in the body, or carbon in the earth. And the earth and the body are nothing more than the same thing, made up of elements, which are information of light-coded energy. I'm speaking, light-coded energy that comes from the universe. You know what I'm saying? So when we start to cultivate this light body, we're cultivating, this star centers, which this light, talk about extraterrestrial beings. They want to talk about extraterrestrials built the pyramids and stuff. We're talking about this. Extraterrestrial being, going beyond Terra Earth, going beyond the earth, going beyond the physical body, going beyond the ego.
Yes.
So when we go beyond the ego, we start to interact with light that exists beyond the body. Asteroids, astral, aster. You're talking about cosmic light that exists within the body called melanin. Or on Earth, it's called carbon. So, and all organic molecules, when you study biochemistry, all organic molecules essentially come from carbon. You know what I'm saying? So light, when it manifests itself, comes into existence in a form and it leaves a dark pigment. That's why you have all different colors, spectrums. What do you think these colors come from? It's your eyes projecting the vibration of electromagnetic frequency within that matter. Well, electromagnetic frequency goes back to electromagnetic radiation, which is light. Talk about studying the universe. Universe, because you are the universe. Unifer, right? Unifer, the body, the universal mind. This is what we're talking about. Universal consciousness, because if you have a mind that is able to perceive the universe, then you have consciousness that is the universe, that comes from the universe. So going back to a little bit what I was saying though, so you have this light, which metaphysically, in the metaphysical understanding, represents consciousness or states of awareness, experiences which exist beyond ordinary physical perception. So when we start to look at these experiences which exist beyond ordinary experience, when we start to use our ordinary perception to view these things that are beyond it or hidden or occult, then we get lost. And that's the problem. Now you have angels, now you have demons. What are angels? Angle of light in the body, which you can understand as netter. The netter are angles of light in the body. You see what I'm saying? Angles of light from where? Where did the ancestors come from? Like the sun. They come from the spiritual realm. And when the ancestors die, they go to the sun and they go back into there. So that's why when you're dealing with cultivating the ancestors or contacting the ancestral spirits, you have to deal with your spiritual aspect. You can't perceive these things with the physical body, with your physical senses, like you normally would. And the reason why is because the ego will superimpose itself to make you think something else, make you think that it's out of your body, or to make you think that it's evil, or to make you think that it's this or that, because your consciousness is not attuned to that. And that's why you do meditation. That's why you do the spiritual rituals. That's why you do your spiritual work, because you're attuning yourself to be able to perceive your own self. You're attuning your outer body to be able to perceive these things. So that way you don't develop these negative emotions and you start to bring light to the darkness. So we're talking about what is known as the soul, the spirit. There's photonic light codes hidden beyond your ego, hidden beyond your physical body, hidden beyond your perception. This is what is known as the underworld. So man is both physical entity living in the physical reality, but also in occult reality. So we are spiritual beings existing in the physical body, living out a physical existence to realize our spiritual reality, to realize the spiritual existence. You know what I'm saying? So we're dealing with experiences going inside of self. And so that's kind of what I wanted to express. I mean, let's see if I can go into a little bit more, because, you know, there's always more that could be added to this.
Hey, bro.
Go ahead.
Hey, are you gonna go into the daemons and the spinal, the reptilian brain? Because
Yeah, I can go into that.
yeah, whenever I was going through this experience, it was saying that I became invaded by extraterrestrial reptilian, that I've been invaded by extraterrestrial reptilian, and it wanted to invade and come inside of me and all of that.
Okay, so to clarify this, we're dealing with what is known as what is called now in a lot of the metaphysical understandings or the spiritual understandings, they call it like the reptilian people or the reptilian. You have what is known as the reptilian brain. So that's what we're dealing with here, and I'm trying to actually find where I mentioned this in my book. so I can give you a better explanation. But I'm actually going to draw it out here on the board too, where people understand what this stuff is. But yeah, first of all, we have to define what they mean. So in their understanding, I'm not sure where they're coming with reptilian or whatever, wherever they even got that word from, because reptilian means reptile. Let me see here. See if I can pull this up real fast. Might be in my other book. Let's see. When you're dealing with the reptilian brain, you're dealing with the brain that houses your kundalini, your cosmic light energy. That's why your kundalini is a serpent, or described as a serpent. So let's see here. Try to get it. But yeah, you have your kundalini, which is described as the serpent, which is what? The serpentine energy. But like I said, I'm gonna draw this stuff out right here so you can see. Okay. So, and I believe we went over this a little bit too, talking about the Kundalini and the Jed pillar. The great work involves the cultivation of oneself through the expansion of one's consciousness into the interconnectedness of oneself with the one source essence, the all. This is the essence of the above and the below, the here and the now. As it is in heaven, so as it is on earth. As it is above, so below. So it is the substance which is intermediary between spirit, mind, and body, the energetic thoughts and material. Through this cultivation, we can realize our potentialities as well as actualities. We must manifest our true selves, the spirit self. In psychology, it's called the anima, the animating principle within things, all living things. So through our metaphysical cultivation of the soul, this means tapping into our primordial river of cosmic life within our being, meaning tapping into this reptilian aspect. So I'm going to go into this a little bit more here. Let me see. I got to find something I can erase this board with. So hopefully you guys got an understanding, a better perspective of what we're dealing with here when dealing with the spiritual, shamanic, magical aspect, as far as dealing with the soul and how it interacts with the physical world, and how your physical world interacts with your inner self, your shadow self, your soul. Okay, so the Kundalini and the Jed pillar are chematic representations of alchemy. Well, the Jed pillar is an identification of the native, I would say, Indus Kush Valley, which would be the ancient Dravidian, the ancient Tamil people, which dealt with the Kundalini, or the Uraeus in Greek. So the Kundalini and Jed pillar are chematic representations of alchemy, the alchemy of creation of the philosopher's stone. Now, the philosopher's stone is the pineal gland. So when you're dealing with alchemy and you're dealing with the philosopher's stone, that which can bring you immortality is your pineal gland. And immortality means your soul, to bring you the full expansion into existence of your soul, because your soul is the immortal aspect of yourself. And it creates this substance known as melatonin, which actually there's a lot of research that has gone into melatonin to describe it as even a healing, one of the most potent healing substances within your body. So when you sleep, melatonin is the dark substance which is secreted by the pineal gland, melatonin. So this melatonin is melos, or melos, which comes from the word like dark night, like a knight in shining armor. Yes, we're talking about
Batman.
Yes, exactly, and the Dark Knight. So we're talking about your pineal gland, and so you're dealing with alchemy, dealing with the philosopher's stone, or the shadow self. So restoring the primordial self, or restoring the balance between the inner principalities of Ra, light, and Thoth, wisdom. Isis, and Nephthys, or also known as we have the hidden inner wisdom, and also Nephthys representing the feminine aspect of that Thoth energy as well. Because then you also have the Ra in Horus, in Horus and Set. So these are just an example of how these principalities can be understood in metaphysics. The mantras and other mystical practices are used to engage these elements in order to carry out the great work, raising the kundalini throughout the main centers of the body, and ultimately attaining the Christ anointing oil, or the melatonin, also known as the DMT in the brain, the dimethyltryptamine produced by the pineal gland, produced within the body at the head center. The mantras are the luminous hymns, or the Om, to the nectars of the divine principles through words or vibration of light and sound, which are divine words that connects and invokes aspects of the cosmos within ourselves through our DNA. So these things invoke the light code frequencies, or our shadow self. These things basically are actions in which allow us to perceive our spiritual self, which are these, what they call gods and goddesses. That's our spiritual self. So the one who raises the Jed pillar becomes the judge and speaks the truth, or Ma'at, and embodies the wisdom of Solomon. The daily life becomes inspired with spiritual meaning. In such states of consciousness, we tap into our greatest life powers. Through cultivating and performing sacred tasks, we elevate our kundalini energy, or states of consciousness, and the Jed pillar, or the chakras, and by balancing the principalities within, we begin to elevate the world around us through our states of consciousness. One must realize the balance between Ra and Osiris, Horus and Set, Isis and Nephthys within themselves. They must be this in order to be alive. This is the basic focus within the body, or the universe. The universe is considered to be the harmony and coming together of opposite energies, principalities known as unifer. The coming together of the yin and yang, man and woman realizing themselves one with the creator and the cosmic reflection of the universal drama. The knowledge of self extends to the neurological network, which allows us to manage and utilize the power of the reptilian system in an esoteric manner. In both ancient Kemet and throughout ancient Eastern world, the reptilian brain is symbolized as the primordial serpent, the serpent of power. That's why you have the Uraeus, which sticks on the crown of the Egyptian priests or the Egyptian kings. So the reptilian brain is symbolized by the primordial serpent, or serpent power. Now, this serpent is dealing with your Nega energy, Nega being a serpent. So let's draw it out so you guys can see it. You have 3 brains in science. You have 3 brains. So here's your brain. This is what your brain looks like from the side. And I know it doesn't look like exactly like this, but a model. So this here is dealing with, you have your reptilian brain. So all of this is your reptilian. And this deals with your primordial energy. And it's connected to your nervous system, which is where your primordial energy is. Now, this nervous system is the kundalini, or the spinal cord, the spinal column. So you raise your consciousness up this level. You raise your primordial energy up towards these 3 brains. And you have to access the central nervous system in order to do this. So the next stage you get to is, let's see, I'm going to use a different color. All I have here is red and blue. So you get to the second brain, right? So let's say this is the second brain right in here, which is basically dealing with your mammalian brain. So this right here is your reptilian brain. We'll say the R brain. And here you have your mammalian brain, the M brain. M brain. So you have your primordial energy, which exists within your R brain and the central nervous system. This is your serpentine energy. I'll just put serpentine. Serpentine. This is your vampires. Dealing with what Bobby Hemming was saying. This is the vampire self. And your R brain deals with survival.
So since you said the vampire self, so that will mean that when you access in this part, if anybody's accessing this part, it will feel as though something is trying to take something away from you, such as like, you know, feed off your emotion or your anger or your fear and all of that. It would make it feel as though something is like coming that is taking something. It would make you feel like an entity or something is trying to drain you of your energy in that part of the mind.
Yeah, it could, because you're dealing with your central nervous system. You're dealing with your primordial energy centers.
Right.
The central nervous system is in tune with your 7 chakras, which are connected to this serpentine energy. You know what I'm saying? So what you're trying to do is you're trying to raise your survival energy up to the higher parts of your brain. Instead of using your lower part of the brain to live out your existence, instead of using your R brain, which is anger, hatred, all of these are survival. And this is where all the negative things exist. That's why I said it's the vampire part of self. Because the vampire, what it does, it makes it feel like you're being sucked of energy. And that's why, you know, there's different forms of meditation. There's different forms of spiritual practices that allows you to contact your higher part of your brain. Because like when I get done with this, you'll fully understand it. But you're trying to contact this part of the brain right here. And this part of the brain is dealing with the next brain, and you have the mammalian, which is your emotions.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, your serpentine energy does have to deal with your survival, but it also has to deal with your emotions. So you may feel drained after doing meditative practice. You may feel like you went somewhere because you are going, you know, and you're raising your consciousness. I'm going to put that right here. Raising consciousness. And this is what we're talking about with the lower self and higher self. Your lower self is your R brain, your serpentine, but it's also your kundalini. That's why it's sleeping at the base of your spine, and it must be awakened. Not awakened just to be awakened. It must be awakened to this.
Right.
So again, we're dealing with so we have the R brain, first brain, number 1. Then you have the mammalian brain, which is number 2. And then on top of here, I'll use the blue marker. We have what is known as the top of the brain, the cerebral cortex, the RAS. And it actually goes into this little area right here too, which is where you have, so this, ultimately this right here is your, what is known as your neocortex. Neo meaning new. Cortex meaning the top of the brain. So here you have your neocortex, which is the top. That's the 3rd brain. So you have your neocortex, your mammalian brain, and then your R brain. So what does the neocortex deal with? The neocortex, since your mammalian brain deals with your emotions, your R brain deals with your survival, your neocortex deals with higher thought form. Higher thoughts. This is your intellect. This is your intelligence. And we can see this throughout history. Early humans were in survival mode. That's where they learned how to use fire, which is kundalini. Then they raised it to the mammalian brain. They were able to use their emotions to help them in conjunction with the R brain to get through survival. And then ultimately now we're in the state where we've developed the higher neocortex, where we can perceive mystical states of consciousness. That's where this is right here. That's why you contact the higher part of yourself, because right here is where your God exists, or the perception of your God. You see, so when you're dealing with the raising of the Kundalini, you're dealing with the raising of your consciousness into these different areas. So most people are living in the consciousness right now or survival. You know, survival and negative emotions. Because you have to have all these brains in order to be human. So most people are living as humans in one of these three brains. In our the thing about spirituality is to cultivate your awareness from the lower base of the spine, which is your lower self or your survival, all the way up to the top part of your body, which starts right here. Technically, it starts right here in the back at your heart area. That's where this is. And that's why you need to access your heart center, which is peace, love, and unity. Purity, right? In order to get, or pretty much a puring of your emotions, because that's where your emotions start. The purifying of your heart chakra is the purifying of your mammalian brain. The purification of your lower chakras are the purification of your survival thoughts and emotions. And then when you get to your higher self, that's when you get to the purification of your intelligence. That's where you start to get the spiritual wisdom, spiritual knowledge, and occult wisdom, right? The hidden stuff. But in order to do this, you have to raise that serpentine energy. That's why you have what is known as the Kundalini energy. So one must realize the balance between Ra and Osiris, Horus, Set, Isis, and Nephthys within themselves. This is what we're talking about here. Because emotions deals with what? The feminine. The neocortex is a balance. Survival is dealing with masculine. And we can see this within human beings now. Men are more survival based. They're muscles, linear and rational, rationalizing of things. Because when you look out in the fields and you're hunting, you have to rationalize. You have to strategize. But when you're dealing with your mammalian brain, that's more emotions. Because when you're dealing with the plants, it's more feeling. You know, it's more emotive. But when you're dealing with the neocortex, when you're dealing with building structures, building things, you have to unify these things. And that's why we live in a society where we do now with buildings and structures. But guess what? It's built from here. These things weren't cultivated. Your stuff wasn't cultivated in order for you to live in something like a natural environment. Because it was too rational, right? Oh, we have to get away from the elements, you know. So now we live in concrete jungles, and our intelligence is book smart. But to our ancient peoples, we lived in a natural environment, so our survival was based off of nature. And guess what? Our intelligence was based off of nature. Our emotions were based off of nature. But now we live in a concrete jungle where our survival is based on concrete jungleness. You got to get a job. You got to go to school. You got to do this. You got to do that in society. But why isn't it that you can't cultivate your house or build your own house out of nature? Why is it that you don't learn how to grow your own foods? You see what I'm saying? That wasn't the major subjects we study in school. The major subjects you study in school are based on this. A lot of them don't focus on this because this has to be cultivated. And that's what they dealt with in the ancient mystery schools. They dealt with cultivating all of this. So like I said, all the spiritual sciences that we know of, that we can say, oh, this is spirituality, this is magic, this is this, or this is that. It all comes from this. So without being able to cultivate your consciousness to a higher level of understanding and state of being, then you're ultimately going to live in survival mode, which is fear. It's based off of fear. That's why they say, well, those people are they're based off of the reptilian, because they're living in the lower states of consciousness. They haven't raised above, beyond, and this is dealing with your cosmic primordial energy, central nervous system. central nervous system, dealing with linking your consciousness with your body. So biophysiological, biopsychological experience is going on right here. So raise your consciousness to your neocortex, to your higher thought, your higher intelligence, your divine wisdom. Divine wisdom. This is your spiritual contemplation. This is your meditation. When you do meditation, you're seeking to activate this area. I'll just put activate. During meditation, you're trying to activate that area. Most people only get up here, because a lot of times you have to get through your survival mode. And a lot of times you have a lot of fear. You have those repressed thoughts and the things that the inner child has to go through. This is it. And it's because of your because of this R brain. And you have to get through that in order to be able to use your primordial energy for higher thought, for higher feelings and emotions like love, compassion. Most people are dealing with this, fear, because they haven't developed past their heart. The snake is still sleeping. The serpent is still sleeping and not being used for something much more profound. Because with this, when you use your energy, and when I mean cosmic primordial energy, I'm not saying a concept that doesn't exist. I'm saying this is the energy that gets you to wake up in the morning. This is your God energy right here, your primordial energy. Primal meaning first. So your first energy, your soul, raising the consciousness up here to activate your higher self, the top of your head, the Ras. So hopefully that made sense. And when you do raise your energy, you're actually, what you're doing is you're contacting your melanin, because this is what it's dealing with. You're contacting your Damians. And so you start to experience the Damians up here, seeing gods, goddesses, and things like that. Communicating with the God realm, or now, book knowledge.
and let me ask you this: can your Damians use someone else as a host to get through to you?
See, everything is interconnected. Everything in the universe is interconnected. You're from your body to your consciousness to your to the way your body works. It's all interconnected to the earth and to other human beings. So if your soul wants to speak to you, it can use the stars. It can use anything. So you can so yes, if for example your soul wants you to realize something, your consciousness will be used in a sense. You will be able to see those things that which you didn't see before. You see,
right.
When viewing these things, and then that's when you be like, oh, so that's what it was,
right?
Yeah. Yes, that's spiritual states of consciousness. Because if you're not dealing with the revelation, then you're not dealing with raising anything. You know. And that's the whole thing. You have to get beyond the negative. You have to get beyond the ego. I'll put ego right here,
because I felt that when I was dealing with the Damien, it had went into went into someone to use me, and the form that it took was the form of a child.
Right. And children are closer to this primal energy, and they're able to access the neocortex better than human beings can that have grown.
Yes.
Because human beings that have grown to their fullest development had their time to access this. And if they didn't access this and cultivate this already while they were younger, then a lot of these things are deficient. Like you have people that are like 60 and still living with negative emotions.
Yeah.
Because they didn't deal with that during their childhood. So the ego deals with separateness. So the ego wants you to say, well, you're separate from me because you're over there. But when you're dealing with understanding of the activation of the neocortex, everything is in unison. So that's why, for example, that the aspect came to you as a child, because it wanted you to see that part of yourself through the the unification of things that are non-separate, because it's beyond the ego. It's beyond this lower shit. So you were seeing things up here, you know, from this perspective, and interpreting them from the unified perspective, instead of saying, okay, well, separateness, that's not me. And your ego did that. It said, well, that's not me. That's something else. That's over there. That's outside of me. When in actual reality, it was just something inside of you that manifests.
That's right.
You see it, so you can perceive it. And only you probably seen that. It wasn't, you know, everybody else. Oh, that's that. No, it was only you who was able to see that, because you're dealing with that part of your mind. The unified part of your mind. Now, if you're dealing with your emotions, then, you know, that would have made you feel negative, or made you feel, I'm pretty sure you did feel a certain way, but you use your divine mind, your divine wisdom, your divine revelation to not become afraid of it.
Right.
Because you didn't deal with your separateness. You didn't deal with your ego. It might have made you afraid right away because your ego came in, but if you set that aside, you're able to raise up.
Yep. And purified it.
Exactly. That's the whole thing. It's about purification. Meditation, that's what it does.
And then right after I purified it, you know, whenever I went to sleep, I started to sweat and lose weight.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Because you're actually, going back to the picture I had up here before, you're actually releasing things from your ego. That's why your body was releasing toxins, which is what your sweat does, is release toxins. Well, these toxins are the negative emotions from when you raise your primordial energy through your thoughts in relation to some experience or something in your life. Then you start to release a lot of these things. So they come out of your body in form of sweat, heat, because heat is your inner energy. Heat is your inner kundalini. So when you start to raise your energy, you start to feel warm. You start to feel hot. So,
and even when I was discussing it, you know, even when I was discussing it yesterday, when I had that aha moment, I started to put the pieces to the puzzle together. And when I started putting the piece to the puzzle together, when I was talking to my mom about it, I started to get hot and to sweat.
Right.
Because I had that aha moment. And I was like, oh, I put the piece to the puzzle together. And I was like, yo, that was me. I was, you know, I was telling her that I was the one that had, you know, was doing all of this. It was me.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. It was kind of like my evil twin. It's kind of like, you know, another side of yourself. And so I started to really put the piece to the puzzle together last night. And then once I did that, I started to run hot. And why? Well, my question is, why did I turn hot or get hot and started, you know, sweating a little bit? Whenever I had that aha moment, I figured it out what was going on.
Because you're at a higher state of consciousness. You had more energy running through you, because when you're at those aha moments, you have gone beyond these lower expressions. Right. So for just to bring in another perspective, is like the reptilian brain, it's autonomic, very similar to the brain of reptiles. That's why it's called a reptilian brain. But then you have it regulates autonomic functions such as breathing, heart rate, body temperature, or fight or flight response. So the fact that you said you raised you're hot, that's a part of this brain, our brain, that was active, because it deals with body temperature.
That's right.
And your breath. So that's another way to understand it. You know, you can understand in the biophysiological perspective. But yeah, because you were hot, that's just a representation that your central nervous system was activated, which actually deals with your primordial energy, which deals with the body temperature, heart rate, fight or flight response, also your breath, breathing. So what do you do when you do meditation? You breathe. That's the first thing they teach you, is breathing. Why? Because they're telling you how to deal with the R brain. And when you deal with your R brain, then you can deal with your emotions, which is not just your emotions, because this is particularly your amygdala, your hypothalamus, and the hippocampus. This part of your brain is the instincts, also known as the mammalian brain, dominant in mammals, which flourished about the time of dinosaurs. So this is your oldest part of your brain. This is the second part of your brain. This is a new part. And so, for example, the amygdala itself and the hippocampus are both involved in processes of perception and gathering information from your environment via your emotions. So if you're dealing with your perception, you're dealing with your auditory, kinesthetic, visual, olfactory, and gustatory. Well, we know in metaphysics that to all these senses, there's like clairvoyance, clairkinesthetic, visual, clairvoyance, you know what I'm saying? Clairgustatory, clairolfactory, clairolfaction. You see what I'm saying? So there is perception that exists for you to be able to perceive the spiritual, that exists parallel to those perceptive organs that allow you to perceive the visual, the auditory, the kinesthetic, the visual, the visual, the olfactory, and the gustatory. So, so these things actually interact with each other in order for you to perceive what you think is reality right now. But that's what I said. When you raise your consciousness, then you're using your brain to the fullest capacity. You know. And so, for example, the processing either by the amygdala in the event of perceived threat or in the cerebral cortex for all other needs. This is what I'm talking about here. We either process things in the cerebral cortex, you know, or the mammalian brain, the neocortex or the mammalian brain. And so, for all other needs outside of survival or outside of, you know, getting your perception for your environment, either to make you safe, but it's also dealing with this, the neocortex, to get divine revelation or intelligence from books and shit. But divine wisdom is intuition, divine revelation, spiritual consciousness. In order to do that, you have to activate your highest part of the brain. So when usually those who have not cultivated this higher aspect see the world as separate. They live as everything is separate from each other. They're egoic, you know. They're very materialistic. Those are these people that are living with the serpentine, with the R brain. Sorry, not
right. So those are the type of people that will say, okay, I'm black, you're white, we're different.
Exactly.
I'm Chinese, you know, and you're black, or I'm Democrat, you're Republican,
exactly.
or
exactly. That's the fear brain. That's where they work. That's how they're able to get you to buy the products. That's how they're able to get you to go to the store or do this and spend your money here, because they're dealing with the R brain.
Mm-hmm.
And the parts of your emotion.
So at this time, I want to show this clip from Batman and Robin, the cartoon that just came out last year. And it's heavily symbolic, and we want to talk about this, and we want to see what y'all think out there. So basically, everything that we was talking about as far as the underworld and as far as the unconscious, you know, this has everything in it. Hold on. Real quick.
And did you also suspect that those ancient sewers have been flooded with an odorless psychotropic gas that enters through the pores of the skin, gnaws at the roots of the mind, turning the psyche back in on itself, twisting and winding until it resembles nothing so much as a labyrinth. Is this supposed to frighten me? You think you're the first ones to drug me? Invade my mind? I'll find my way through this, and I'll bring this whole damn court crashing down around you. Take what you want, but don't hurt my family, please.
Do you understand now? When you put on that mask, you became as much of a demon as the men you claim to oppose. You became one of the very forces that killed your parents. And worse, you spawned the greatest monster Gotham City has ever
seen. Damien
will grow in rage and hatred, tear the heart out of Gotham, and leave a trail of terrible destruction across the world.
Damien. No! I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Damien, forgive me.
So as you can see, Damien, what his son was called, Damien. Damien is what the brother was talking about, is ultra dimensions of the shadow or the shadow self. Whenever you expand your consciousness, you meet face to face with your construct or with your Damien. And this Damien had manifested. First of all, he went. All of that is symbolic to going into the underworld and going into his own subconscious and tapped into his own subconscious. And that's why he said, "You think I'm afraid?" So when you're dealing with spirituality, when you open the gateway up, when you open the door up, you would think that a demon was going to possess you, because you would feel like something has infiltrated your aura, field and all of that, things like that. But you got to understand and keep in mind that all of these things is coming from within, and you don't defeat evil with evil. See, that's the thing we got to understand in this world. You don't defeat evil with evil. You defeat evil. What the Bible says, you defeat evil with good. You defeat evil by saying, because all that inner child inside of you wants you to, all it wants is for you to say, "I'm sorry," because you have exposed this beautiful child to, you've exposed it to certain things.
Yep.
So,
And that's actually the act of forgiveness, forgiving oneself. The
exactly.
forgiveness of self allows you to forgive those others who have influenced you in certain ways for you to live in this type of brain, for you to live in that type of brain, and not be up here in the divine wisdom and intelligence that you should be at right here.
Yes. So this is the whole thing about Lucifer falling down from heaven.
Yep, just like this. Yum. All the way down.
Your consciousness had failed to a low state to the reptilian brain. So you might be thinking, what is all this? Why does it feel like I'm being invaded by extraterrestrial being? Well, it's an aspect of yourself, that shadow part of yourself, that based upon your human experience, have allowed something, or have allowed yourself to be open, that inner child to be open to hurt and pain and things like that. So it's up to you to heal it. But of course, in his dream, that that the man that he's seen that was a big monster turned into a little child at the end, because it said it was sorry. That's all it wants. So whenever you see a demon, whenever you see a demon come out, and break into this physical, or what you would perceive as a demon, that just means that it is the light on one. And when someone is, plagued with that, it's kind of like, basically like when you look at potential, but it's untapped, it's uncultivated.
Right. That's what emotions are. Thoughts that have been uncultivated.
Yeah, that's right.
And your survival energy is nothing more than your primordial energy that has not been cultivated yet to the divine, or your higher self, higher language, linguistics, or higher thought processes like composing music, poetry, art, envisioning of the future. A lot of the problems that we're dealing today has to come with this. We're still not dealing with this first. People still feel separated.
That's right.
So,
and that show was very deep. I don't know if y'all out there in the audience could feel it, but I felt the energy that was coming from that TV show. I felt it. Just like it was. Like almost if I was in that TV show, like, I felt the energy, because it was very powerful. It was symbolizing a lot of things that when you go into the spiritual realm, take it out your mindset that it's an outside entity that want to attack me. No, it's your shadow. The shadow self will reveal to you things about yourself. You will begin, because you can't deal with the ancestors unless you remove these obstacles out the way. And then once you are able to get these obstacles out the way, you're able to connect freely with higher beings, higher intelligences. You'll be able to talk with them, dine with them, and all of that. But
this manifests as wisdom. When you start contacting your higher self, you start to have a consciousness that's in relation to things beyond this shit. So then you speak to other people, and they're like, oh, you're very wise, or you're very knowledgeable, and you're like, well, this is a lot of its intuition, a lot of its divine wisdom. Well, that's because you've raised yourself out of the fold of separateness. You raise yourself out of the fold of egoicness. You raise yourself out of the fold of survival into the fold of creation.
Yeah.
Creative consciousness. So, and these things manifest not even as evil things. A lot of the times they actually manifest themselves as you having thoughts of creating your own business and things like that, because you realize the things that are happening in your world now are not working. So then you raise your mind, you raise your consciousness, and now, oh, I want to start a business.
Yeah.
So that's another way how these things pan out too. So it's not just about seeing evil or evil entities. A lot of the times people do see evils and evil entities, but that's because they're still living with this separateness. So it's about going beyond that, man. This is where it really starts right here.
That's
And,
right.
You know, you can read as many books as you want. You can, you know, ponder about life as much as you want, but it isn't until you activate it, the higher self, the higher consciousness. So you have to deal with the lower self before you deal with the higher self.
Yep.
Otherwise, you're gonna still bring your separateness into your unit.
Here's another audio. So there you go right there, that if you want to manipulate your reality, the blueprint on how to do that is facing those Damians, because those Damians have the keys that you want. You know what I'm saying? So once
it's closer to the understanding of how reality is formatted through the mind.
And once you deal with that based on because see, the reason why, you know, reality, you know, works for some, you know, and you know, if you want to bend reality, you have to understand, you have to bend yourself. Just like what the little boy said on the movie Matrix, the boy that was bending the spoon. He said, understand that it's not the spoon that bends, but it is yourself. So if you want to manipulate, you know, energies, you have to, you know, bend yourself. You have to.
In order to change your physical reality, you have to change corporal reality.
And once you become to your true authentic self, everything else will work out for you. Yep. You know, once you come to your true self, you know, if it's something that, if it's who you are, it's who you are. Just like I said, nobody will get mad at you if you say, like I just said, well, I don't feel like doing this right now. I'll do it another time. Based upon you being in your true identity and who you really are, reality will bend, and then people will react based upon your how you've bent your reality.
Yep.
And then people will leave you alone, but okay.
A lot of it comes by way of perception. What you give out is what you receive. So if you dress like you're poor, guess what? A lot of times you receive that energy. And not whether or not you want to or not, but guess what? That's just the way it is. And so a lot of times, you know, I feel that this is the thing that we're dealing with now, is that it's the perception. You see what I'm saying? It's the perception. In order to change anything, you have to change your inner self first. Your perception of how you see that, how you see yourself with that. You see what I'm saying? Why don't you have your own business? Well, because you probably don't see yourself as, you probably don't see yourself in a sense where you can understand what a business is. How do you define what business is first for yourself? You see what I'm saying? And then maybe that will help you get to that level. You see? So that's just an idea. But ultimately, what we're trying to say here is the cultivation of self goes beyond just reading a book. It goes beyond just talking about the intellectual, you know. It actually goes into an experience. I can't get this camera to say. It's talking about going into an experience that you have with cultivating your inner self. So Anything you want to say, brother, to close out?
I want everybody out there to understand that it's more to your reality than you think it is. You know, it's more to this thing. You know, another reason why I had wanted to elevate and cultivate my soul was I understand that if we say that we're in the matrix and Maya and all of these things, then you understand that it's another life to be lived beyond this. So it would behoove you to get to know the other side of life. You know what I mean? The other side of life, meaning the
Unseen.
the unseen. And a lot of people so bent on just dealing with light and light and light and light. But what was light before it was called light?
Mm.
It was called darkness, because darkness is created first before the light.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? And you know, darkness, and even a lot of people that understand Kemet, you know, darkness, they want to talk about the hidden God. All of that stuff was see, they put it like that so that we can understand the metaphysical meaning behind Amun Re, you know, that darkness, to understand, meaning that what? If one wishes to get light, you must go through the darkness. Matter of fact, there is a black hole in space that light can't escape. Darkness must be that powerful if light can get the fuck up out of darkness. So you gotta understand how powerful darkness really is. And you gotta think about it. Why is everybody drawn to dark things? Everybody in this earth, everybody in this earth is drawn to dark things. You know,
Yeah, in one way or another.
one way or another, everybody is drawn to dark things. Some people find pleasure in playing video games like Call of Duty, shooting games. You know, most people are drawn to, you know, scary movies and like to look at sci-fi movies. I'm a sci-fi movie watcher. I love looking at vampire stories and things like that. And you know, I love looking at, you know, werewolf stories and sci-fi flicks and all that. You know, even in this time we living in 2016. How many times can you go on Facebook and stuff and find some ratchet shit? You know, find somebody getting beat up for some Jordans, or find somebody, you know, fighting their grandma, or find you know, somebody, you know, what they had somebody on Facebook beheading somebody, and how many views it get? Over 1 point some million views.
Right.
So, so if people looking at it and say, "Oh, disgusting," yeah, they say disgusting, but they still watch the shit. You see what I'm saying? So it must be something that they're drawn to with seeing somebody get their head shot. Like, you know, everybody likes this stuff, but see, the average, you know, church going Christian, they see what you do. See, I'm gonna tell you something. If you're in religion, see, this is why they gave you religion, because religion is based on a set of rules. It's based on a set of rules that hinder you from becoming who you're supposed to be. You know, like it might be a Christian that love to go to the club, you know, or it might be a woman that loves to dance. So her profession will be a stripper. You know, she might be a stripper and say, you know, I just love, I embrace my body and I embrace dancing. You know, every Christian woman do some erotic dancing. You know, but yeah, I was having a conversation, bro, with a sister long time ago, and I was saying, how is it that, you know, we always talk about humanity and things like that, and trying to save your humanity and things like that, but when people have sex, they don't give a fuck about no humanity shit. Like they niggas do everything in the bed, everything. Christians, damn, Muslims, it don't matter what, they do everything in the bed. I mean, they hanging from the chandelier, they doing all kind of things to just to please their mate, because that other dark self comes out when you doing that. You don't care about morality. Morality doesn't exist when you doing things in the bed. That's considered to be immoral. That's those things like that. You talking about some women, and I'm sorry, but I gotta keep it real. Some women out there like anal sex. Some men like anal sex. So a lot of people just drawn to that type stuff, man. A lot of people just drawn to certain things that they've ignored, and that's what the shadow. I said it to say this. That's what the shadow realm is. This suppressed emotion that you suppress because you don't want to bring that stuff out because you're afraid that what people might think about you.
Yeah, and a lot of the stuff like homosexuality, a lot of things like that actually do come out of suppressed feelings and emotions. So that actually have to deal with one's sexuality, and again, that goes back to the reptilian brain. So a lot of our issues that we're dealing with, we have to go through the reptilian brain before we can get to the neocortex. You know. And the neocortex is those higher thoughts. So that's why you have to come across certain entities. Those are nothing more than you yourself going through certain things.
Yep.
So you have to get through those lower things. But so
and
you guys tuning in, and you got anything you want to say, bro?
Yeah, just one more thing, man. And all I want to say that is it's about transmutation. It's about transmuting those energies, into a positive outcome, which is what you would call magic, inner magic, or you can call it alchemy. You changing your water you changing your water into a wine. Something that's sweeter. So it's all, it's about transmutation and this DNA. A lot of scientists want to talk about jump DNA and that's the DNA you don't use. See, when you tap into the darkness, you actually are activating that, what you would call junk DNA.
Exactly.
And that's why they call it junk DNA. Modern science call it junk DNA because, of course, they're not going to tell you
dark matter.
It's dark matter. And you need to tap. Let me tell you the secret. You need to tap into the darkness. They're not going to tell you that because of course, they don't want you to activate that stuff because you'll be able to control the element, move things with your mind, shake, shift. You know what I mean? Disappear. Yeah, like disappear and appear into another place. Okay, I want to go. Okay. See, a shaman, a spiritual person be like this. I don't need money. I can go wherever I want to go. Let me draw a circle so I can go backwards in time. Let me draw a circle on my wall and jump. I'm a jumper. Let me jump into, if I want to go to Egypt, let me jump to Egypt. Voosh, I'm there. Let me go to
astral travel.
Let me go here. Astral travel. So it's like
you go there with your astral body, which is your light body, which is your higher states of consciousness.
Yeah, I know everybody's seen that movie called Jumper with Samuel Jackson and that little the white boy that played, and I forgot his name. Everybody, I'm pretty sure a lot of y'all out there seen that movie. He was able to look at a picture and jump there, jump into that picture to that place. He was able to do that at will. He mastered that. Lord Thoth mastered that jumping. So what was there to need for him to come back if he'd been everywhere he wanted to go just by jumping? You know what I mean? In your mind, you can go wherever you want to go. I can stare at a picture and focus on this picture so deep. And then when I go to sleep, I'm visualizing this place, this paradise in my mind. I go to paradise. You know what I mean? So one wouldn't need money to travel because they know how to do it. They master it so much they know how to do it mentally. You know what I mean? The place that you're thinking about going, hey, already been. Like, man, I wish I had the money to go here.
Hey, bro,
that's kind of like me wanting to go to China. But what I did was I taught myself Chinese, and I used that as a way to mentally transmute there. Now I can speak Chinese, and I can speak with people from China now. So, and when I actually do that, why do I need to walk down the street there? You know, we have Skype, and I can speak the language. You know, and I've been there mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. You know,
That's right.
but it's not even about going to physical places. Fuck that. Let's go to dimensions which exist beyond the physical. You know,
Exactly. I would much rather go to a higher dimension, you know, meeting my higher spiritual, you know, my higher spiritual intelligence, you know, than to go to a place that's physical that ain't got nothing but restrictions. Anyway, I've been to Texas. You can't really enjoy Texas like that. You know why? Anybody that knows that went to Texas before, it's always gates and fences everywhere. You can't walk to a mountain without seeing a fence. Because why? Uh, those farmers own 90% of that land out there. So it's no free land when you go out into the when you go leave out the city of Texas. They want you to be trapped in the city. They don't want you to go out there to the country. You know why? Because you really can't, because they own it. They got fences all through the mountain. They got beautiful flat top mountains out there, but you can't enjoy it. You know why? Because they have restrictions. But there's no restrictions in here though. You see what I'm saying? There's no restrictions.
unless you haven't dealt with that inner child or that reptilian brain.
That's right.
Then you have what is known as the egoic boundaries, right?
That's true. Yeah. Yeah.
Then you have to start dissolving the boundaries of the ego. That means really finding out your perception of things, your view of life, you know, your worldviews, and dissolving boundaries between that too. So
A key thing that I want to point out is in the movie Matrix, Morpheus, he said, matter of fact, hold up real quick. Hold on real quick, people. Let me get this real quick. I gotta show y'all something. I don't want to stop it yet, man. I still got a lot to say, man.
yeah, I'm stuck on time right now.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
Oh well, I just gotta show this one thing, man.
The Matrix is a system, Neo. That system is our enemy. When you're inside, you look around, what do you see? Businessmen, teachers, lawyers, carpenters. The very minds of the people we are trying to save. But until we do, these people are still a part of that system, and that makes them our enemy. Have to understand, most of these people are not ready to be unplugged. And many of them are so inert, so hopelessly dependent on the system, that they will fight to protect it. Were you listening to me, Neo? Or were you looking at the woman in the red dress? I was. Look again. Who's it? This isn't the Matrix. No. It's another training program designed to teach you one thing. If you are not one of us, you are one of them. What are they? Sentient programs. They can move in and out of any software still hardwired to their system. That means that anyone we haven't unplugged is potentially an agent. Inside the Matrix, they are everyone, and they are no one. We have survived by hiding from them, by running from them. But they are the gatekeepers. They are guarding all the doors, they are holding all the keys, which means that sooner or later, someone is going to have to fight them.
Hold up. Time out. He said they are the gatekeepers. They are the gatekeepers holding all the doors to, but basically in my interpretation, they're holding all the doors to higher levels of consciousness. They are agents, meaning what? The ego can project itself out from your mind into a host to get you to doubt the power that is within, to overthrow, or not even to overthrow them, but to control them. Because then once you can be able to control them, they won't be that in your way anymore. So they're holding, the Damians is holding all the doors. Oh, watch this.
I hope they got it, bro.
Every single man or woman who has stood their ground, everyone who has fought an agent has died. But where they have failed, you will succeed.
So everyone that has tried to face their Damians, whether it be today, whether it be the past, everyone that has tried to face their Damians, he used the term died, but what he means is they have failed because they was in fear of them. They could be so afraid to where you just be like, oh my God, I cannot deal with this. You know what? I start. I'm fucking enlightenment. Shit. I'll just deal with the books. That's all. I ain't trying to get no higher than that. Basically, you can only go as high as you want to go. So the gatekeepers, the Damians are the gatekeepers. There are your gatekeepers in here. The tricksters, the ones that can pop in and out of each dimension. They can pop in as a bird. You remember, I know you saw the movie Matrix, right?
Mm-hmm.
The agents, all they would have to do is do something and they could transform to somebody else and they could multiply. They could multiply and transform into different people, the same thing as Damians or your Damians. They can manifest in the form of a woman that you might love. You know, it can manifest any way. But check this out.
I've seen an agent punch through a concrete wall. Men have emptied entire clips at them and hit nothing but air. Yet their strength and their speed are still based in a world that is built on rules. Because of that, they will never be as strong or as fast as you can be. What are you trying to tell me? That I can dodge bullets? No, Neo. I'm trying to tell you that when you're ready, you won't have to.
He was trying to tell, Morpheus was trying to tell Neo that, and just like what Brother Ross Timotheus has said, that based upon, we will never get to who we're supposed to be because we live in a world that's based upon rules and oh, that's wrong, that's right. That's what he was talking about. It's based upon rules. And just like what the brother was saying when we was talking about traveling, place mentally, he was like, you can't do that, if you still think that if you still haven't cultivated that inner child. Because why? You still based in a world, in a 3D dimensional realm where you think that you can't do that because it's based on a set of rules. The same thing with religion. You can't come who you truly are. Now, I'm talking about the metaphysical understandings. I'm talking about where they say that you're wrong for trying to be who you really are. Like I was just mentioning, that it's a lot of people that go to church still on Sunday, but yet on Saturday they probably like to go dancing or you go to a club or whatever the case may be. But then they go to church, then they'll call them a hypocrite. Then they'll say, well, you committing fornication because you had sex with your girlfriend, but y'all not married yet. But in actuality, you know, you're already connected. We already you would say you're married already, you know, because your spirits are tied to each other. Just because a man hasn't said you're married, you're not married. You know what I mean? If you've been with your woman for about 7, 8 years, you know, y'all not married. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, it's
Right.
just like what he's.
The paper that says whether or not it is or it's not. But that's the conceptual mind, you know. So that's where the whole idea of separation comes in. Like, well, we're not married because it doesn't say on this piece of paper. What we're saying is it's about going beyond the limitations. You have gravity and all this other shit, but that's only physical shit. But if you're more than the physical, why are you still worrying about gravity? Space travel, you know. Oh, but you need a spaceship. Well, first of all, what is the space? What is space? Energy? Well, what are you? You know what I'm saying? So then you start to realize that you're not separate from the space that you seek. And once you start to realize that you're not separate from the space that you seek, then you could start going within yourself and accessing that which you seek. You see, accessing that which you are.
Yeah. And that's just how ignorant the world has become. The world wants to try to investigate what's out there, but but science has even proven that everything that we say is out there is in here. You know what I mean? So every time I close my eyes at night, I see stars. I ain't got to go outside and look at the stars. I see the stars in here. You know what I mean? I can see angles of light in here. You know, I can see the planets in here. When you enter see, in order to go to those planets that we see out there, you got to go to them in here.
Yeah, you have to conceptualize them in mind first.
Yeah, yeah. Now you perfect my. Well, how do you know it's life on other planets? Because I've been there in the dimensions in here.
Yep.
Been to Mars, Saturn. Saturn is dealing with the underworld.
Yep.
So I've been to Saturn. You know, like you know, the realm of what they would call the devil, or what they would call. So all the planetary systems, and you know, it's all inside of you. So I won't need to go get his telescope and look at, you know, oh, let me find Mars and Jupiter and Venus and Mars. A lot of us even descended from these places, you know, to come into a physical body. So you've been there before.
Yep. But then they need science to understand it.
Yeah, man. See,
Science to understand yourself.
I'm gonna just tell the people, look, man, get on your metaphysical game.
Yep.
Get on your metaphysical game. You know, try to master metaphysics to the best of your ability. Try to have the experience. You know, it's not enough in 2016 to read anymore, but it's more of the experience. Of course, you know, it's good to read. Reading is fundamental. Reading strengthens the mind. Reading does all of that. But once you get done reading, what you must do is it's time to get the experience, because you can't find God, you know, reading. You know, you can only find your higher self from the experience with the spiritual realm. You can't say you're spiritual and don't deal with spirits.
Yeah. And you can't say it's spiritual and that it's dealing with spirits, and so now you can't fuck with it, because that's being ignorant. Especially if you just watch this video and now you know.
Yeah.
So we appreciate those of you guys who came in and viewed the video and tuned in to Temple Divine University of Metaphysics. This is Rastin with Thales here, and Elijah Kwesi, again, bringing you back some more information, spiritual stuff that you can use to help you access and cultivate your spiritual self. So with that said, I say peace.
Peace.